Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Carpe Diem Living. I'm so excited today because we have an amazing woman named Claudine Francois. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Awesome. So she is coming on to our show today to talk about all the things that her wisdom and her advice in the holistic field. So Claudine, take it away. Tell us about what you do and your expertise.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I own a health coaching business called In Good Clean Taste. And I know there's a lot of misinformation and just a ton of stuff out there with regards to women's health. And actually, a lot of it is just based on what works for men, which is part of the problem, is that, we've been told a lot of things that we should be doing based on studies that have been done on men. And the reason why that is the case is because it's easier to study men because they don't have fluctuations in their, right? They're the same every day. Whereas we women are on a 28-day cycle. And so we have fluctuating, our bodies fluctuate in terms of the weight, the energy, and all those things throughout the month. So that's why when you see information on like the keto diet or like HIIT workouts or intermittent fasting, all of that stuff is done on men's health. And so I work with women to determine their own health needs, but we start with what I think we would call the holistic method, which is instead of starting with the food and the workouts, we really look at what stressors there are in their lives and how to release that stress, because the stress is impacting our bodies in so many ways. And I know you and I have talked about stress, how stress impacts our own lives and our own health, and it can do so much damage. It can trigger autoimmune diseases. It can trigger leaky gut, IBS. It can even lead to, if it's severe stress for long periods of time, it can lead to things like cancer and heart disease. And I don't think that I realized in my life how much of an effect stress was having on my body until it got to the point where like my body was basically like knocking me down saying, you need to handle this because otherwise you're not getting anywhere fast.
Oh man, no, that is absolutely true. Like you and I spoke about is like how it just kind of wreaked havoc on your life. You just think that you're meant to go and handle a bunch of things and be perfect. And then when you start to see your body's kind of declining, you're like, oh wait, hold on, what's going on here? And it's, oh my gosh, like it literally is, I call it like a domino effect. Like it starts with one thing and all of a sudden it's this and this. And if you're not already familiar with holistic practices and medicine, you just think, all right, I'm just stuck with this. Once I have that diagnosis, that's it. I just have to maintain it. But in reality, there's ways to work on it to improve it and hopefully completely reverse it. So yeah, tell us about your journey on why you wanted to become, a health coach and, how it all started for you.
Right. Well, I was in accounting for 20 years. So, I was a high-powered corporate CFO, killing it and making my way in the world. And I thought that was like my dream, right? That's what I wanted. And I didn't, well, for one thing, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, right? I didn't anticipate some of the challenges that I came across with regards to, a woman being in a man's field and having to deal with like the underlying issues that go with that. But I was also in a very toxic work environment, and the combination of the stress of the job, which when you're churning out financials every month on a deadline basis, as well as having really toxic people in the workplace that you interact with, you have no choice but to interact with every day. I started getting severe migraines to the point where I couldn't even, like I had to sit in this one chair and not move all day. And it was usually on a Saturday, which sucked. Like my body let me get through the week. And then like the one day I had to spend time with my kids who were really little at the time. And I was gone 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Like I only saw them a few minutes at night. Yeah. So like the weekend was my time with them. And I would be on the couch completely debilitated with this migraine. And it was the kind of migraine where you can't even keep water down. Like you can't, nothing. Yeah. So I guess inadvertently it was a great weight loss technique, but I don't offer that kind of, I don't think that's the best way to lose weight.
No, that's not the way.
No. But and from there, I started to develop food intolerances and food sensitivities. And come to find out later, when I started getting a lot more testing, I had actually stressed myself out to the point where I had leaky gut.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so even taking out all of the things that I already knew to take out, like all of the normal inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, sugar, those were gone. But I still, once I got to the point where I had leaky gut, everything I ate was affecting me. And so I had to heal that
Yeah.
before I could even move on. And I see so many women that are suffering with either, they've been diagnosed with PCOS or lupus or Hashimoto's disease, or they've had, chronic kidney stones, or just, chronic migraines. So
Yeah.
many things that our doctors just will prescribe medicine for, right? I
Right.
can remember my doctor just giving me medicine for the migraines, which A, didn't work
Right.
because I couldn't keep it down, and B, made me feel worse when
Right.
I could. But it's just a band-aid, right? As you know, it's just covering up the problem. It's not actually dealing with the underlying issues,
Right. The roots. Yes.
the root causes, which is so much of what modern medicine does. And don't get me wrong, modern medicine is great for fixing things like if you have a broken
Yeah.
anything.
You need surgery.
Yeah, if
Right.
you need surgery, if you break a limb, then modern medicine is fantastic for that. But
Right.
in terms of finding out the underlying reasons, it's just not something they're trained to do. And very few doctors have really virtually no nutrition training. I mean, they might do like a week or two in med school out of
Right.
like the 10 years they're in med school, and that's it.
That. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was what I had to go through basically to get to the point where I spent 5 years trying to figure out how to fix myself. And unfortunately, the last thing that I realized was that I had to I had to change my thoughts. I had to change how I treated myself. It wasn't just that I needed to change the food that I was eating to not exacerbate the issues. It was that I had to change the underlying cause, which was the fact that I never gave myself a break, that I was constantly go, 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 that I wouldn't allow myself to rest, that I thought self-care was selfish, that I didn't understand the power of mindset and the power of meditation. I mean, granted, I was in a very masculine oriented field for so long. So like anything quote unquote woo woo was just
They're just like, what is that? Yeah.
right. And so I'm like, and you want me to sit down for 5 minutes and think of nothing?
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's like, they're just like, I don't even think, yeah, no, I totally understand what you mean. And sometimes even people that aren't familiar with this stuff, they still think that. And I'm just like, no, this is very real to feel aligned with yourself. So yeah.
Well, interestingly, there's now a ton of scientific backed studies on the positive effects of meditation, on the positive effects of self-care. And it's the easiest way for people to think about it is the now overused analogy of putting on your face mask, or you're putting on your mask. You know what it is when you're in the airplane? Putting on your oxygen mask
Oh, oxygen mask. Yes.
first. Sorry. There's so many masks around these days.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
I had a
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
Anyway, putting on your oxygen mask first before helping someone else, because if you can't give what you don't have. If you are completely depleted, and I see this in my own parenting, and I wish that I had come to this conclusion earlier, because my poor children had to deal with me being stressed out all the time.
I hear
And now when I take the time for self-care, when I take the time for my morning practice and my meditation, I am so much more calm throughout the day, and I'm able to handle the stresses of the day with grace rather than just letting them rule my life.
right. Right.
And it's just it's a better way to live. I can't imagine. It's almost hard, once you've kind of had the aha moment, it's hard to
To go
think
back.
you can't definitely can't go back, but it's hard to imagine how I even live that way.
Exactly. No, I hear you too, because even with me, so my son's 3. And before, I mean, thank God I figured out this holistic stuff while he was little, because I can't imagine if I just would have continued on the way I was doing things, how you were saying like self-care you thought was selfish. Same here. I was like, how can I take care of myself? I have to put him first, everyone else first before me. And the same thing with the oxygen mask. I had an interview with someone recently, and we talked about how you can't give from an empty cup. And it's so true. If we don't take care of ourselves first on what our needs are, how in the world are we going to be able to give our best to the people we love and to those around us? It's just nearly impossible. And just like how you said, like, if you aren't like in the right headspace and if you don't prepare yourself for the day properly, you won't be able to give that grace. You will be on edge and anxiety is high and stressed. And that's just not the way to live. I mean, think about with COVID, we're all stuck at home. Imagine if we didn't do these things and we're like that 24/7, we would, I don't even know. I don't even want to think about what that would be like. Like that would not be fun for anyone.
Right. Thank God for online yoga.
Oh yeah, right? Oh my gosh. So you talk about self-care. Do you want to talk about like what you do for your own self-care as far as like what really helps you as a mom with your business?
Absolutely. So I made the commitment to myself probably about a year and a half ago to do a morning practice. And at first it was just because somebody told me to do it. And I was like, oh, this is so lame.
Is it like a thing to do?
Right. How am I going to fit that into my daily schedule? But and so what I do is I do, the length of time varies, but I always do these same things. I do a meditation, and I had to work my way up, right? Like I started with 3 minutes at a time because I just,
Yeah. I have issues too, so I know what you mean.
yeah, it's something you work at, right? It's a practice for a reason. So meditation, journaling, which for me is a lot of gratitude. And I find that, and I know people will talk about vibration. And at first I was really skeptical, like, what are you talking about? But it truly does change your, I'll call it vibration, but it's really like your outlook for the day, your energy for the day, like being grateful for the things that you have in your life, even if you have a ton of things that are stressing you out, remembering the things that you can be grateful for and just being grateful for them and spending the time to write those out and to think about them and to feel that feeling, that really does help me throughout the day, just to have that positive outlook and to focus on the things that I do have, which, people will talk about law of attraction and how when you have this energy, this positive energy, positive things come towards you. And it's so true. If you think about negative people in your life, right?
Right.
Like they just attract negativity. Everything they see is negative because that's how they're thinking about it, right?
Right.
So having that gratitude practice has really changed a lot of things for me. And doing affirmations, there are certain things that, everyone has something that they need to work on, right? And so for me, there are just certain, when I've been reading, which is the fourth step, which is inspirational reading, I find books on topics that I know that I need to work on. And so I'll either take pictures or I'll write down phrases from the book and I'll put them in my phone. And so every morning I'll scroll through that one, it's like a note on my phone, that note, and I'll reread. Sometimes I'll write them in my journal, if I find ones that are particularly poignant that I really want to anchor in for the day. But I go through those because that's again, putting yourself in that positive mindset. And then doing some stretching or light yoga or some kind of, walking. Walking is great. You live in a really nice place for walking. I live someplace where it's really hot.
It's been kind of up and down lately. I don't know. The weather's been a little bit unpredictable, but
really,
I mean, I'm thinking of getting one of those walking pads where I don't even have to deal with the outside.
Oh, really?
I have no excuse. Like whether it's like super hot or super cold, it's like you got to get your steps in. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm
true.
considering it. Yeah.
I know, but I do love nature, just the smell of nature and the smell of trees and just being outside. It just automatically puts you in a different mindset. I know some people I've read that just putting your feet on the ground, your bare feet in grass actually changes your attitude.
Yeah. I kind of want to test that out because I have to do that. I mean, the last time I've been barefoot outside was probably as a child. Like, I don't just go walking outside barefoot just for fun, So.
Right. Unless you're on the beach, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my morning practice. And I have found that setting aside that time for myself, and it could be as little as 20 minutes, it could be up to an hour, depending on the day. But I want to say almost forcing myself to do it. And the way I force myself to do it, I don't know if you're as type A as I am, but I literally put it in my calendar.
Yes. I am such a stickler on calendars, to-do lists, and I try to like kind of, be more flexible with my day. But it's kind of weird. I always say like if it's on my calendar, in my subconscious, like it's like the law. It's like if it's on, you got to do it. Like, and if I delete it, I feel guilty, and I'm like, because I committed to it, right? But then I didn't follow through. So then it's like this whole thing, but so we
Right.
like in that way.
I totally get it because I will literally put my workouts in my calendar. So because if it's in my calendar, it happens, right? It's gold. Like that's it.
Yes, exactly.
um, but putting the morning practice not only in my physical calendar, because for whatever reason, I like a physical calendar. I know it's old school, but whatever. I like the physical calendar, but I also put it in my appointment calendar so people cannot book that time.
Ah, so like absolutely there's nothing that can get in the way. That's good. That's good.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a recurring entry in there. So, but setting aside that time for myself, I actually find that I am more productive during the day. So it's actually not taking away time from my day. Like that was what I thought in the beginning. It was going to take away time from my day.
Uh-huh.
It actually adds time to it gives me more time to do things because I'm so much more focused. I'm so much more productive. I'm more positive. So I'm not dwelling on things that happen throughout the day. I'm just letting them go. And it's just a fantastic, I wish I'd known about this at an earlier age because I just think how different would my life have been, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. I hear you, but at least it's better late than never,
Absolutely.
Yeah, those positive changes. I mean, at least we know this stuff is proven to work. It's powerful. So regardless of when you start, as long as you start, you'll reap the benefits almost instantly. You, your family, people you work with. And yeah, like I know for me personally, when I started really implementing self-care, making my health a priority, it just, you could really sense it from the inside out. Like people around me were like, wow, you seem like you're doing really well. And like, even if it didn't pertain to like weight loss or anything, like your energy and your vibe is so much brighter. And so I think once that started to turn for me, I was like, wow, this really works. So yeah, I love that with the way you work, it starts in the mind. Because yes, like we don't realize like our thoughts, all those things really do come into play. Because there was another guest I spoke to recently where she was saying how if one thing is off, the rest can't flourish. Like, it's all of them are tied together. And so, yeah, I think like with your business, being a health and wellness coach, like I love that you implement all those things so people realize like these are all very big components that they go hand in hand.
Right. Well, I love what you said. It's essentially the mind body effect, right? That we're starting to realize how much the mind and the body interact. And I don't know if you know about the HPA axis that connects the brain and the gut.
Yeah,
Like,
I did hear about that. Uh-huh.
yeah, so the gut is where 80% of our serotonin is produced, which is the happy chemical. But, whether or not it produces it depends on how our brain is set
Yeah.
up, like, how our mindset is doing, our positivity, all that stuff.
Mhm.
It's kind of like a circular formula, which I know is like an accounting thing, but
That's one way to
one
look at it. Yeah.
I know one begets the other. And so in order to heal my gut, I had to heal my thoughts. I had to heal my outlook. I had to change and I'm generally a positive person anyway, but
Right.
I really had to work on that to change my health. And it seems almost crazy that our minds can have such an effect on our health. But if we think about it, I mean, look at the placebo effect. You know, our minds have a huge ability to impact our health, and that's just one example. So
Mhm.
you know how when you're more stressed, you're more likely to get sick
Yep.
because
Yep.
your immune function stops when you're stressed.
Right.
Reproduction stops when you're stressed. Metabolism, when people think about, oh, my thyroid, my metabolism is totally slow. Well, stress really impacts that. Everything stops when your body is doing the stress response because the stress response is designed to keep you alive,
Right.
not thriving, just alive. So,
It's a very big difference, okay?
right. So when we take away the stress response, or release is how I call it, release the stress response, then we're enabling our bodies to create the best environment for us so that we can thrive.
Yeah, no, it's also true. And I mean, for me, like, because I had gut issues too, where we didn't know if it was like SIBO or what, but we definitely knew there was a gut issue because it was affecting my digestive. And even though I was like trying to heal, I was so intrigued at the same time because I'm like, I have literally have never heard of any of this, like at all. But once I started implementing those things and taking, like I think another aspect that people don't realize is vitamin deficiencies. When you
Mm.
don't have the proper vitamins in your body, oh my gosh, like it really causes a lot of problems. Like like, I know, I mean, most women I know have issues with like iron. Like when you're deficient on iron, like I know, like if I, like before I was taking vitamins like daily, whenever I started to get, if I felt like my anxiety was really bad or I was getting triggered really easily with like stress, I'm like, oh, I'm off. There's something off. Like there's a vitamin that I don't have enough of. And so I need to go and figure that out. So that's another thing that I really like to highlight to people is like, yeah, your nutrition, like what are you eating? If you're not eating enough of it, you got to take something else to supplement the difference. So that's just me. I know that helps me a lot. I guess like another question I have is like, so with your health and wellness business, is there a certain like, do you condone like CBD or anything like, like other types of herbs like ashwagandha? Like, do you implement that within your?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you asked that because I'm focusing right now a lot on hormone health because I see so many women that are struggling with, for example, we were talking about the thyroid issue, the low metabolism, because of the stress response. But I also see, as a result of the way health and wellness studies have been undertaken for the most part until now, which is mostly on men, there has not been a focus on how women's changes throughout the month affect their health and what they need to do. So, in the beginning part of our cycle, so menstruation is the end of the cycle, right? So the beginning, the first 2 weeks, we have a ton more energy in general. If you've taken care of your body and they're like, there's always going to be extraneous issues, right? But in general, you should have more energy towards the beginning of your cycle. And there are certain herbs that you can take to support yourself. For example, when you're ovulating, you have a lot of estrogen going through your body at that point. And so if you drink holy basil tea or you take holy basil supplements, that supports your estrogen. And it actually helps calm you as well. But your body is actually able to handle more stress at that point, right, in your cycle. But once you start heading to the last 2 weeks of the cycle,
Yeah.
then you really need to support yourself with the ashwagandha, the rhodiola, the cordyceps. And then when you get to, and that's like the week before your period. And then when you're in the menstrual part of your cycle, there are other herbs, there's so many different things that we can do to support ourselves, but the most important thing that we can do to support ourselves in that time is to rest.
Yes.
Right? Like so many of us
to do.
I know. Well, and I deal with it myself, right? Like I constantly want to be doing. And even when it comes to my workouts, like I have a schedule and I like to keep the schedule, but I have to be really mindful that if I push myself during that week when my body's telling me not to push myself, then I'm actually working against my body. And that actually can affect us in terms of our weight. Most of us have noticed that our weight fluctuates throughout the month.
Yep.
But if you're taking care of your body consistently, and you are minimizing the amount of stress that you either quote unquote deal with, or you're releasing it as it comes, your body is much more able to handle the ups and downs, and it will let go, release the weight, because the stress response is forcing it to hang on for dear life. Because it's like, I don't know when I'm going to need that energy. So I'm going to hold on to the fat cells because that's a quick source of energy that I can release when we need to run away from the tiger, which is the stress response, right?
Right. Fight or flight and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that is some great tips because I mean, I've started to learn more about herbs and like what's helpful for your health depending on what, the things you have. And I take this one supplement called Zen, and it has ashwagandha. I can't pronounce this correctly. With Rhodalia or
I pronounce it rhodiola, but I don't know.
Okay. I was just like, it's something along those lines.
Right.
But
it starts with an R. It's got an H in it.
Right. Yeah, it's a complete blend of different herbs. And I think there's even like B12 in there. And that for me has helped me significantly. Like, because I was someone who had really bad insomnia. Like and see, when I was growing up, I didn't realize it was insomnia. I just thought, oh, I can run all day with minimal sleep. Like I actually prided myself in that because I was like, see, I am so productive. I don't I'll rest when I'm dead. Like I just had this like mentality of like, go, 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 which a lot of us have and, or have, recovered from that and live more healthily. But then as I got older, I was like, oh man, like this insomnia is kicking my behind, because now I'm like, especially I'm a very high caliber person. I do a lot of different things. And I was like, how am I going to keep up doing what I'm doing if I don't sleep well? Like there was a time where I was told like I may have sleep apnea. I was grinding my teeth. It was like this whole thing. So like rest, like sleeping time for me was not really sleep. Like it was just kind of like a stressful time that I'm laying down. That's what it felt like. And so for years, I just never had decent sleep. And then that's when CBD came into play, because once I started that helped with my anxiety, that helped with my insomnia. And then now I've switched it over to where I take CBD during the day, because it helps me kind of like with my focus and just anxiety in general. And then at night I take the Zen. And that's actually the only thing that like lets me sleep and I don't wake up feeling like groggy or anything.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why I love the power of herbs. And I love that you mentioned like which types of things you can take throughout the month that would support you with your hormones, because I never heard of that. I definitely want to take some notes regarding that.
Yeah, there's actually a really good book that I read called In the Flow, FLO,
Okay.
that talks about a lot of these things when it comes to women's fluctuating hormones and how we can support ourselves during the different parts of the cycle. So if any of your viewers or listeners are interested, that's a really great resource.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I definitely want to take a look. It's funny because it's called In the Flow. Have you heard of the app called, I think it's called My Flow or something like
It's the same lady. Yeah, she created the app.
Her book. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I recently found out about that app and I was like, wow, it makes sense as to why during, my menstrual cycle, I have like no energy. And it's funny because now, like, if I'm starting to feel kind of like more drained, I'm like, oh, I know why. It's because my period's coming up. But back in the day, you don't think that. You just think regardless of the month or time of the month, you just got to keep going.
Yeah. But can I mention one more thing about that? Because this was like something that I kind of accidentally discovered that's really helped me during the menstrual cycle. So sometimes when I'm menstruating, I will get headaches, especially if I'm not taking care of myself like I'm supposed to be. Like if I have a deadline coming up, right, and I don't do I don't rest enough, I don't do my detox baths or whatever. If I have a headache during that time, I will make a cup of miso soup. So I'll just take miso paste and mix it with hot water, drizzle some sesame oil or sesame seeds or something on it. That gets rid of my tension headaches.
Really?
And at first I was like, is this a fluke? How can this be happening? And so I did it like 3 more times and it works. I mean, it's like a miracle. Hashtag miracles right here.
Yeah.
Miso soup for headaches.
See, and that's the other amazing thing about everything holistic is we're so used to like, oh, you have a headache, take a pill. Oh, you have take another pill. Like growing up, I would take Midol, I would take Tylenol, Motrin, all the things. And little did I know that was affecting my liver, hence what also brought me down this whole path of needing to heal, right?
Yeah.
Because I used to have, I feel like when I was younger, I had really bad headaches just because of, not resting. And then as I got older, it was just like the drain feeling, the brain fog, adrenal fatigue. That was something I had to heal from. And with adrenal fatigue, what helped me was I actually saw a specialist here in the Bay Area, and she offered like Chinese medicine, Chinese herbs. And that was like my saving grace, because it kind of tied in with like my not so great of sleep, where I would sleep but still feel so exhausted the next day. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, I have my son at home, my dogs, my businesses. Like, it just kind of felt like, what am I supposed to do? So, like, going to bed early didn't do anything for me. So I just love, like, it's kind of like a trial and error, right? With your holistic journey, is like just finding the things that work for you and really trying to figure out, like, what are the solutions to these root issues. So
It can be a trial and error, although I wish that I had known that there was such a thing as health coaching at the time, because then I could have somebody really like reduce the amount of time that I spent doing this. That's for sure.
About it. How long was your health journey again? You said 5 years?
5 years. It took me to figure it out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And for me, it took 5 years without any relief. I suffered for 5 years and then I finally figured it out. So I guess, the same thing. And I'm still on my holistic journey. Like I've just about solved, like recently I was able to reverse my allergies, my severe allergies.
Mm.
So I guess I want to ask you about that. So with your allergies, how did it come about for you? Like how did you know you were starting to develop your insensitivities?
It's yeah, my dad likes to say, well, you're intolerant to everything.
Yeah, it became a
Like,
running
thanks,
joke, right?
Dad.
People around you, and I was like, oh great.
Right. It actually, the first one was an accident. So my husband at the time, this was in 2011. No, 2013. My husband decided to go paleo because his family has a ton of health issues, and he was like, he'd been trying to figure out his own journey as well.
Right.
So he decided to go paleo. Well, I was a baker. I am a baker. I love to bake.
Aw.
And so I was like, you can't marry a baker and go paleo. Like that's grounds for divorce. What?
It's like, how are you going to eat anything I make?
Right. But since he was going to eat it, there was no point in me making it. So kind of by accident, I went gluten-free, right? And my migraines went away.
And then you're like, oh, that's interesting.
No, I wasn't that smart.
Oh,
I spent those 2 or 3 months that my migraines went away complaining to him about how I wanted to bake something and he wasn't going to eat it. And he finally said, well, if you want it, just make it. Like, go back to gluten, see if I care. And so
oh
I
my
did.
gosh.
And then the migraines came back and I was like, you jerk, you ruined gluten for me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But that was that. So that one was an accident. And then when it came to dairy, I had done an elimination diet, and I knew that I couldn't eat cheese or just like straight up milk, but I had thought that I could still have yogurt and ice cream and certain other things.
Right, right.
But after I went on this elimination diet and I added them back in, my stomach was like, actually no.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
so
Like you
much.
just feel bloated and just kind of like just queasy. That happens to me.
Yeah, and like my stomach would turn and it was just not good. You get that like taste in your mouth, like that's not good.
Yeah.
So dairy not good. Come to find out, since I've done my research since then, like 70% of the world is lactose intolerant. It's just that,
Crazy. Yeah.
it's just that the
And yet,
Western world is.
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just that the Western world has, like everything we eat has dairy in it. So, and that's like the thing that's transported across the world, unfortunately.
Right, right. Thank God
Um,
Sprouts and Whole Foods now, right? Where we have like other options. Because I remember
yeah.
when like gluten free was like, what the heck is gluten? Like everyone didn't even know. And this was, yeah, back in 2009, 2010. And like I remember I knew someone, he was a family member and he had a gluten allergy. This was the first time I had ever heard about it. And I was like, what do you mean? And he had to drink gluten-free beer. He had to eat gluten-free bread. If I baked anything, it had to be gluten-free. And he was the only one I ever knew. And then little did I know over the years, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going gluten-free too. And it just became more of a common thing. It wasn't so like weird or like different. So I
And
like
then they started actually making things we could eat, right?
right, right. Because before it felt very limited. Like there's not really much you can do. And then all of a sudden it's like now there's gluten-free pasta, there's gluten-free bread. And so thank goodness, because otherwise it would be very hard to follow any holistic type of diet right now. Um, yeah, so I guess if we do talk about like food options, so you mentioned how all these studies are on men's health, which I didn't know that. And I find that very interesting because
It's
it's like,
crazy.
yeah, like how would we know if it really works for us? And it makes a lot of sense as to why people just don't get the results they're looking for when like say like a husband and wife, they do like a keto diet and the husband's doing great. It's like you see, the success, and then the wife is like, but I'm not seeing any difference.
And her hair is falling out and she's sluggish.
Ah,
And like so many, I see that all the
my
time.
gosh. So what would you recommend for someone that is trying to I guess find like the perfect balance of diet? Like if you were to summarize what that is, what would that be?
Well, that's the thing is it's different for every person, which
Mm,
is why it's so valuable to work with someone. But I would say in general, there are some things that you can test out on yourself. I mean, the first thing is to be really mindful when you're eating and notice how you feel after certain things. If you're having trouble with that, you could try an elimination diet where you take out the inflammatory things and add them back little by little. And there are some things that can surprise you. Like when I did that elimination diet, I found out that I really couldn't tolerate eggs very well.
Oh, right. Same.
And come to find out later when I was getting tested, it wasn't the egg itself. It was the fact that most chickens are fed gluten.
Wow. I have
And,
never heard that aspect.
like their feed isn't, because chickens are supposed to eat like worms and stuff, right? They're supposed to peck around in the yard and just eat whatever. But if they're given a bunch of feed that has wheat in it, then that impacts me. Like when we were in Italy last year, I could eat eggs every day.
And you had no issues with their
No
eggs.
issues, because the chickens were from the little farm up on the side of the hill where, they were just pecking around in the dirt all day.
Wow. Wow. I'm like really, hold on. This information is like crazy to me because it really does make sense. It's kind of like, when you breastfeed your child and if there's something that you ate and it gets passed on to them just because you ingested it, it's like the same effect.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. That is like, so that almost makes me think for me, because when I eat eggs, it kind of triggers like eczema type of symptoms. And so what I started to do, like when I was doing my own elimination diet, yeah, I took out dairy, I took out all this, and like I stopped flaring up. My inflammation went down significantly. So wow. So I guess when I get a chance to go to Italy, I won't worry about the eggs. That's good to know because I thought about that too. Like, okay, we live in our world here. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to my screen. It's okay. This will get edited out. But we live in a world where, like where we just learn to like stay away from things and whatever. But have you heard of that show with Zac Efron where he goes around like seeing all these sustainable places? So I think it's like similar to that. Like I think that if we went somewhere where everything was so clean, it wouldn't affect our health nearly as much. And that just gives me peace of mind. Like when we are able to travel again,
Yeah.
the world, I don't have to worry because I know like Europe, it seems like they really have it down on like how to make the foods they love with all types of ingredients and it doesn't make you sick.
Right. Well, I mean, unfortunately, some of them are taking on American practices because they're cheaper.
Oh.
So you still have to be a little careful. But yeah, in general, especially, and I lived in France for a few years.
Oh yes.
They have really stringent requirements. Like they can't even import half of the stuff that we make because they don't meet the requirements. When we talk about dairy, I could go on about dairy. I have gone on about dairy. But that's one of the issues too, is that, a lot of the cows are given feed that has wheat in it. Not to mention the fact that they're given a bunch of hormones and antibiotics, which also ends up in our dairy products.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they don't allow that kind of thing, and they use a different kind of cow over there.
Oh,
They
okay.
use, I think they're called A2 cows, and we have Holsteins.
Okay.
So which theirs aren't genetically modified. Like
Mm.
if you had gone to, it's interesting because my mom's from a dairy farming family.
Oh, okay.
In Wisconsin, or Wisconsin, as they say.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. And so my cousin, who grew up working on dairy farms, he lives in California now, and he and his kids, I guess this kids went on some kind of field trip where they visited a couple dairy farms, like they visited a commercial farm, like we have all over Fresno. And then they visited like one of the ones where the cows are actually on the grass, like in those commercials where they were like, happy cows come from California. Well, like two of them are happy because those are the ones on the grass. But the rest of them are in the feeds in Fresno feedlots.
Oh my God.
But he was saying that when you look at the cows, most of the cows that make all the large percentage of our dairy products have these huge udders, huge, like falling on or touching the ground udders, because they are genetically modified and trained to produce 20 gallons of milk a day.
Oh man.
Each cow. Whereas the ones that were on the grass and were all happy and, they didn't have all the junk pumped into them, they only produce 5 gallons of milk a day. Now think about that. 5 gallons in your udders versus 20 gallons.
Yeah.
And what it takes to get from one to the other. And that's, in addition to all the things that they are pumping into those cows that end up in our dairy products, it's no wonder so many people are having issues with it.
Now it even makes more sense because I was also thinking too, like, how is it like, because I mean, dairy, obviously we've been so used to just having it in everything and now people are starting to get off of it, but that makes sense. This is also like finding the root of what is wrong with dairy. Like there's so many layers to dairy that won't affect you, dairy that's been, like you said, genetically modified. Like this is like a whole new
Yeah,
Wow.
we could go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm learning so much from this. Wow. Oh my gosh. Man, you have so much knowledge. Love it. Uh, um, but yeah, so I mean, so okay, so where can our listeners find you? Like, where are you on all the social media?
Well, In Good Clean Taste is my company's name. So, at In Good Clean Taste on Instagram, In Good Clean Taste. I have a Facebook page. My website's ingoodcleantaste.com. I also have a Facebook group for women who just want more support and want more knowledge, because I actually do I do a training every week on
Nice.
topics like this. So I've done one on dairy, and it's accessible in the group.
I will be
Um,
joining the group.
yeah, so it's Thriving Women Entrepreneurs. It's not the one with the lady holding the mug. For whatever reason, there are two called Thriving Women
Oh,
Entrepreneurs. It's the one with my face.
okay, okay. I'll know what to look out for. Oh my gosh. Well, oh my God. This was such a great conversation. And I'm so, so glad we got to connect today. I learned a lot. And I know so many people that will be watching, listening to this episode will learn a lot too about dairy. And I'm sure you have a lot more things that you share in your group that are just eye-opening that most people would not know or even know where to start to like research, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but thank you so much for
Oh,
coming
it's
on.
my pleasure.
And
Thank you for having me.
of course, of course. And yes, I will have all of your links and everything in the description, in the show notes. So everyone will know where to find you. Yes, thank you all for listening today. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.